Support for the Leadoff on WGLT and WGLT.org comes from the Central Illinois Regional Airport, where travelers are one stop away from world destinations. Connections on American Airlines to Chicago or to Dallas-Fort Worth are available daily. Close, convenient, CIRA. More at CIRA.com.
New survey responses reveal the questions and confusion that people have when they recycle in McLean County. That's one of the things you need to know to start your day for Tuesday, May 14th. I'm Ryan Denham, and this is WGLT's The Leadoff. Now let's lead off with medical professionals asking you to consider rolling up your sleeves and giving blood now, before the beginning of summer trauma season. Colin Shope has more.
Dr. Farhan Bokhari is trauma director at OSF St. Francis Medical Center. He says as the temperatures rise, more people suffer injuries from incidents like car and motorcycle crashes, farm accidents, and gunshot wounds.
People hemorrhage from those injuries, and you need to get blood into them fast. You have the golden hour, and you have to resuscitate them back to where they used to be, or the rate of death is extremely high.
The golden hour refers to the critical 60 minutes after a traumatic injury. A patient's outcomes are greatly improved if they receive treatment within that time frame, and that includes blood transfusions. Organizations like the nonprofit blood center Impact Life provide that blood to hospitals. Impact Life has a distribution center in Peoria just minutes away from OSF. Kirby Wynn is their public relations manager.
We are currently at a 2.5-day supply of type O negative and a 3-day supply of type O positive.
A day's supply means the typical daily use for the more than 100 hospitals in Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and Wisconsin that Impact Life serves. All of that blood comes from donors it drives, and Wynn says having a 5 to 7 day supply on hand is ideal. I'm Colin Shope.
Here's some other stories we're following at the WGLT newsroom. WGLT will host a public forum May 29th focused on solutions to Bloomington-Normal's housing shortage. That event at ISU's Bone Student Center will feature the state's homelessness chief and a panel of local stakeholders. Governor J.B. Pritzker says he won't go back to old budgeting games to fund spending priorities like fund sweeping or shorting pensions. Lawmakers hope to wrap up their spring session by the end of next week. And about 73% of Illinois' Medicaid recipients remain on the rolls after the first redetermination cycle following the COVID pandemic, while about 660,000 recipients have been disenrolled. You can find more on these stories at WGLT.org. Even for those who are on board with recycling in McLean County, there's confusion about what can be recycled. There may also be some laziness about contamination. Those are among the results of a survey of hundreds of residents done by the Stevenson Center for Community and Economic Development for the Ecology Action Center in Normal. Graduate students Kat Johns and Sierra Mack Erb also did long interviews with other residents, both urban and rural, to find out what they know about recycling and contamination in recycling. They say everyone did pretty well. In this interview with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker, Sierra Mack Erb and Kat Johns tell us that the average was 11 out of 14 questions right.
They knew that paper and aluminum was recyclable. People had a hard time with scrap metal. Iced coffee cups was the biggest one that people got wrong. Iced coffee cups are not recyclable. And then hot coffee cups were also closely behind that. Those are also not recyclable.
What else did you find about recycling attitudes?
Well, I think what's really interesting is what our survey suggests is that we have a culture of recycling in McLean County. Between residential recycling and the drop-off pickup locations, most people didn't identify that they faced major barriers to recycling, and overwhelmingly, most of our participants said that they did participate in recycling. What was interesting is within that culture, there were high levels of confidence in people's recycling habits, but those didn't necessarily correlate to the quiz we tested them on in contamination. And we found that that was consistent across our interviews too. People spoke very openly about the responsibility to recycle and how easy it is, that we have the privilege to participate. But when it came down to talking about sorting their recycling and contamination, our interviews revealed that, like our survey, there were actually some mistakes in people's knowledge and shortcomings.
So what was the knowledge gap? You mentioned the cups already, but...
Yeah, the cups and largely just knowledge of what plastics are recyclable or not. There was also some evidence that in those circumstances, people will recycle plastics because they understand them to be recyclable, but aren't aware that there is actually variation in plastics and what we can process here in McLean County.
So what did they get wrong about which kind of plastic worked and didn't?
In some of my interviews that I had, people were talking about recycling the weird plastic containers that their kids' toys came in. Sometimes people would talk about recycling yogurt cups. And so EAC will say bottles, tubs, jugs, and jars. And so like a little yogurt cup couldn't really be recycled because it's a weirder plastic. Mm-hmm. But if you had a big tub of yogurt, that could be recycled. And to a lot of people, that doesn't necessarily make sense.
Mm-hmm. And what we found too, and one thing that we measured in our survey is, when people don't know, where are they going for that information? Mm-hmm. And that was important knowledge for the EAC too.
Where did they go, or did they just say, oh, I think it'll work?
Well, both kind of happened. So we did have a lot of people who talked about doing that exact thing you said. And so we lovingly refer to that as wish cycling. So when we talked about it again with the EAC yesterday, they said that if you don't know, don't recycle it, throw it away. What else would they do? Some folks would say that they would go to Reddit or Google, just kind of picking whatever first link would come up. Social media was another one.
Yeah.
And how much difference does that make? Because what is not recyclable in McLean County that could be recyclable?
Well, you said it right there. It makes a huge difference. One of the people that I specifically interviewed was telling me how frustrating it is when they get on Reddit trying to figure out if something's recyclable or not, and there's people arguing whether or not it is. They're probably people from two different areas, so it could be yes for them and no for the other.
What does this tell the Ecology Action Center about what they should do?
We know from the EAC, right, that contamination is still a factor in our city. Then where is the disconnect? Why are we still seeing so much contamination and recycling? And what our survey starts to hint at, right, is that I think what people aren't recognizing is how damaging that is to our recycling system, that contamination really is an issue, and that, to Kat's point, if you don't know, it's better not to put it in.
Those were ISU graduate students Kat Johns and Sierra Mack Erb from the Stevenson Center for Community and Economic Development. They spoke with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker. Before that you go, the Bloomington Liquor Commission meets today at 4 at the Government Center. On the agenda is a restaurant liquor license request from Fusion Crunch in downtown Bloomington. And that's it for today. I'm Ryan Denham. You can subscribe to The Leadoff on the NPR app or wherever you get your podcasts.